Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my second official The Walking Dead review for the 4th season. And tonight, we are all infected, so spoiler alert as we go forward here because I will bear all in this review. If you missed my review from last week and you're itching to catch up, then you may in fact do so by following the link in the description, and you can find other links to my other TV reviews as well. So without further ado, I'm gonna try and make this snappy, as snappy as I possibly can here as we dive into everything. I mean, I'm at a disadvantage compared to the people on like The Talking Dead, which I do want to watch tonight because Haley Williams is on. Okay, but you know, I have to come up with all the talking points and say all the clever things. I mean, it's fun, and I try. But I apologize if there's anything that I miss in the process of this review, so by all means, feel free to fill in the blanks and ask me questions and ask each other questions and just, you know, see, this is a very open and free environment, unlike the environment in which we find our lovely friends in The Walking Dead, as things are relatively well in a state of utter disrepair. So, you know, first of all, everybody's talking about it, the virus that's going on. And there's a lot of mystery revolving around this, and a lot of volatility, and a lot that we just straight up don't know. So as always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on, you know, regarding what could possibly be, you know, the source of this. What does it all mean? Is it supposed to mean anything? I mean, see, I've kind of been viewing everything through the lens of some great grand conspiracy, okay? Because that's just the way I roll. And knowing that the freaking governor is still out there roaming the streets, you know, that speaks to me that some part of this stems from him being like, haha, got you, you know, a little bit of a revenge story going on. So the question is, you know, there's a lot of talk about the virus spreading through the water, which in turn went to the pigs, which in turn went to people, and different yada yada yada. And then there's also this airborne aspect of things, and I guess that the writers kind of like modeled the spread of this flu and sort of the virus itself after something that happened in 1918, I think it was. So if that isn't disconcerting to you, then I don't know what is. But so we see also that, you know, when this freaking like heavy metal zombie mosh pit is bashing up against the barrier, and, you know, things are reaching that fever pitch, and Sasha sees, you know, all the mice strewn around and just ever so conveniently like kind of clustered in an area that we can only consider to be a sort of, you know, makeshift dinner table, little picnic zone. So we know, and we also know from the very first scene of the episode with the creepy flashlight and the dangling little mouse and all that fun jazz, that the walkers are in fact being fed. And so, does that connect in any way to the virus, or is someone on the outside merely trying to take advantage of what is turning out to be a shit-tastic scenario? So that's kind of my question. Could somebody be, you know, like flus, that stuff just confuses the crap out of me. Like flus versus like, you know, bacterial infections, right? Because flus just mutate and they party and rave and do all this stuff on a molecular level, and then it just manifests itself in the least savory ways possible and moves very quickly. And so it's the volatility of it all that leaves me just kind of sitting here like, oh, bloody hell, you know, there's just not much that I can say, and really, I don't know what I think about all of this. So, I mean, if there's anything that I missed, or if there's anything that's like for sure, and I'm still trying to like, you know, shoot blanks about it, then do correct me, because I'm trying to keep up with this stuff just as much as anybody else on the show is, okay? This me from my, you know, non-apocalyptic living room. And I will tell you, I had spaghetti tonight, which was so convenient, being that the blood was flying this episode. And that's just the way it works, you know? It's like my meals correspond with like the gore level of the show, you know? It's never like a happy balance. It's not like I'm eating something so different that it wouldn't bother me. It's always the spaghetti, you know? Always the schloopy, noodly, intestine-y type foods that I end up eating. So I don't know what that says. I don't know. But at any rate, so the virus, and you know, it just makes this season, it brings the tension level to a whole new extreme, of course. And I think that that's something that a lot of fans both appreciate and loathe, being that, you know, we think back to like the second season where we're pretty much, it was sort of like this sort of soap opera deal, you know, is more all the relationships and so-and-so's having a baby and can't tell so-and-so because that means that everyone know that they screwed so-and-so, and you know, it just kind of like turned into this sort of hothouse environment, and there wasn't a lot going on, and they were relatively protected from the walkers, whereas now they are completely and utterly inundating everyone. And it also kind of takes away from, you know, the aspect of the humans versus human side. It brings us back into the essential conflict, which is the humans versus zombies, right? So, I'll go ahead and break down for you my thoughts on all the different things happening with characters and whatnot. But I will tell you that I get really nervous anytime there's like a long stare, or anytime anyone says that they don't feel the slightest bit well, which could be for any number of reasons, being that, you know, like sleep is a little bit hard to come by, except for everybody in Ward D. Like literally, that's like the ward for the heavy sleepers slash the people who don't really mean enough to freak everyone out when they die. It's like there's kind of a weird hierarchy going on, because I mean, I had a feeling that nobody important was going to die in the process of, you know, the Revenge of the Patrick, but still, that was just unfortunate. And now I don't remember what I was talking about exactly with the people of... Yeah, no, oh, anyways, yeah, so it's just like, I feel like anyone and everyone could go. Like, when Michonne got injured on her, you know, trying to come back from, like, her Santa Claus raid. I mean, Michonne's pretty much like Mama Santa Claus. You know, she's bringing back the goods to everybody, and I love that about her. She she contributes a great deal to, you know, a very unfortunate environment. But yeah, so like after her ankle got crunched and all that stuff, and then she's hanging out with Beth and in the prison, and when, you know, as soon as the baby starts crying and she like really winces, and it's just like, you know, you can't really tell. We do see a scene later when she's actually holding Judith and just wells up with tears and just kind of busts up. And I think that that could suggest something, you know, about her really painful past, which we've only just barely glimpsed into. In fact, you know, it's interesting because the show has kind of veered away from backstories and flashbacks and things of that nature, but I certainly think that it could benefit from including some more along the way and just kind of like breaking up the sort of linear storyline. But what's interesting about that, I think, is the fact that we're so far in that remembering the past is a little bit tricky, you know. But I see that, to me, that whole situation with Michonne kind of spoke to a tender place for her. I mean, I loved her face, like when Bethany first handed Judith over, and she's like, "There is a tiny human being in my arms, and I just don't know." And then all of a sudden, you know, it goes from the baby crying, transfers right into Michonne. It's almost as if like the emotional turmoil moved from baby to Mama Michonne, and it was just really, it got me because it's freaking Michonne. She is my woman. And I think, you know, I think she's a lot of people's woman, but I'd like to think that she is mostly and above all my woman. I'm just saying. But at any rate, yeah, like just the whole, anytime you see anyone who looks even remotely fatigued, or when kind of the background music shifts and things sound kind of distorted and echoey and weird, it's just like, you're like, don't die, don't die, don't die. I mean, it's just, that's kind of what watching the show feels like right now, is a big old like, don't you do, no, no, stop. It's just, it's just crazy. It's just a circus of sadness. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it through this season, but I made it through the end of both Breaking Bad and Dexter, arguably. So perhaps I actually can. But so then we also have some interesting shenanigans going on with Carol, who is equipping the young minds of this new generation with the weaponry with which to defend themselves. And I can completely understand why she's trying to do that. And and it's sort of interesting how that story intersects with, you know, the sort of Rick and Carl situation. Carl's in the place of where he's trying to restore himself in Daddy's eyes so he can get his gun back and do what he feels he does best. And then, you know, Carol's kind of running this black market operation of teaching the kids, you know, what's up on the streets. But at the same time, you know, it's the only way that she feels that she can really have control of the situation, and sort of, you know, she's doing her part as a community citizen to make sure that young minds are sharpened as well as the knives which those minds will yield with their hands. Yeah, so that's really, you know, it's an interesting situation, and I can sympathize with Rick sympathizing with that, and hopefully it doesn't get in the way of anything. I mean, I already think that there's a lot of things getting in the way of things, you know. So you have to choose your battles, you know, and that's what makes this season really crazy as well, is that there's so many battles from which to choose. For instance, we have Tyrese and his woman, who remained unnamed to me pretty much since the get-go. It takes me about like 4 episodes to pick up on a new character name, and she was out by 2. So sorry, Toots, didn't know your name. She was sort of reminiscent of Lori as far as her looks go, but I totally called that she was getting owned this episode, and I think, you know, there's a certain level of predictability. Like there's sort of some events and ways that characters are portrayed that can kind of lead you to see that they're going down. and that indeed was the case, but not according to the way that we thought exactly. Because, you know, at first when she's like wandering through the deep darkness after getting serenaded by the lovely Tyrese, and, you know, she's the flickering flashlight, of course, to open up that scene, and we're just like, you're gonna die. There is no question whatsoever. The lights have flickered. I mean, that is a divine, you know, that's a sign. That's God saying, hey, you know, your lights are about to go out, as in the light of your existence. So just letting you know. But so I mean, of course they had to throw in that tension as everything just kind of sloped its way into a slippery intestine thing everywhere, feast, event. I can't talk. There's just no words, only feeling. But yeah, it's just psychotic to me, and I keep losing my train of thought. Yeah, so we thought that maybe this woman was gonna go down that way, but as it turns out, it was everybody else and their mother, but not her. It was just that she was one of the sickos who got quarantined off, and Rick went ahead and, you know, made the executive decision to burn any trace of the insanity that is currently devastating all of mankind, at least their corner of mankind, which is probably a relatively decently sized corner at this point in world history. But, so, you know, that spells out a little bit of trouble for, trouble on the homestead with, you know, Tyrese versus Rick. And, you know, throughout the episode, we just see Rick very painstakingly trying to move through all the decision-making process. And, you know, we have the scene where he's digging graves with Daryl, and they're kind of, like, discussing everything and sort of how far Rick has come and what he's brought to the group, and et cetera, et cetera. And so there constantly is this draw towards the internal struggle of Rick's, which I think is good to have some level of like the external conflict, which is grisly and in your face, and then kind of the internal conflict going with that. Because otherwise, you know, we just have these bodies flailing around and it's just survival of the fittest, and there's not a lot to sink your teeth into as far as, like, you know, the humanness of the story. So I think they're trying to maintain that sense of, you know, that there are still consciences that are around and doing their thing, and people still have devils and angels on their shoulders, and it's not just all an emptiness and just some vague fight for survival, you know. And I would definitely like to start seeing a little bit more of my girl Maggie. And you know, we have there's a lot going on character-wise. It's really hard to make the broad sweep over everything. There was really, the focus was mainly on, we have Rick and Carl. And Carl's got his gun back, you know. He told the truth, and I was screaming at him at that point. It's just, Carl just ruins everything. But he didn't exactly ruin it, because, you know, there's a certain understanding that Rick has, and, you know, Carl explaining that to Rick sort of coincides with, and, you know, quite possibly sort of compels Rick to give the boy his gun back. And yeah, so I think that was kind of cool and meaningful, and I'm still distrustful of our dear friend Carl due to events of previous years and whatnot. I think some people can vouch, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what direction anything or anyone is going in. We're pretty much all on the chopping block here, and that's just about it. I mean, because I can predict and sort of shoot into the wind, but there's no way of knowing what's gonna come down. So what did you guys think of this episode? Yeah, it was intense. There was quite a good bit of action going on, and it was tough to see all of that happening in such a contained space. I was just shrieking because nobody was waking up. It was just like, okay, you know, it's like spreading, like, it just bugged the crap out of me that nobody was awake and responding, and it was taking so long for the issue to become known to everybody else. It was just like hysterically uncomfortable is the way that I would describe it. I was very not in a good place. And, you know, everyone's just kind of going about their thing, and I love how they made all, like, the main characters run out before they, you know, busted into Block D to get everything figured out. I mean, because they're like, it was just kind of the writers throwing us a bone and being like, oh, hey, you know, like, all the people you love, all the sexy ones who have been around all this time, they're still here. So, I mean, and that's what it comes down to, because when it comes to repopulating a desolate planet, you want to have the good-looking people around so that you won't mind as much, you know, with the process, the heavy responsibility with which you are endowed. So, I mean, there's that. But, yeah, so no crazy main deaths yet, but I do foresee pretty much anything and everything being possible about this time. And yeah, so leave all of your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about this, you know. When do you think the governor is going to come back into play? How does this coincide with the comics, like as far as relationships and different things? There's much to discuss and many mysteries to come, and I think a lot of subplots that haven't even developed yet. And there's some very important minor characters that are going to be coming down the road as well. We're at a very interesting point in the game where there's a renewed sense of terror and of instability and of anyone being taken from the clutch of your affections at any given time. So there's that. I mean, I was thoroughly entertained by tonight's episode, and I mean, we'll have to see how long it takes for the flu to get phased out, or, you know, is this going to be a central aspect of the season, or is this just the beginning of a totally new conflict to come, and this is just setting the bloody stage. I mean, it could be it could be anything and everything. I'm excited for the return of the governor, personally. You know, coming to shake things up as he so sassily does, and to continue to see just how all the character relationships unfold in the midst of this. And I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you, except that I think it is all a conspiracy, but I mean, what isn't in life? So there's that. I will leave you guys now, and I will be back next week with more. And just so you guys know, I may start watching Game of Thrones very soon, which would in fact mean that come next spring, I will be reviewing. I'm trying to go the right way about it and read, you know, A Song of Ice and Fire in addition to watching the show, and we'll kind of see how far I get with both. Hopefully far enough to be sufficiently, you know, devastated by new literature and fiction, because that is exactly what I need. So, thank you guys so much for watching. You are the best of bests, and I will be back before you know it. Take care.